I've got Georgie Crozier, the Liberal Party's health spokeswoman, about to join me now. Georgie Crozier, we know the whole issue in relation to these housing tenancies, we're into its third day, has dominated the media. We know that people can't leave the buildings. We know they're struggling to receive essential supplies, and no notice occurred before these lockdowns took effect. It's interesting, they're not even 1/10 of the cases of COVID-19 in the state, but they're closed down. Victoria Shadow Minister, that's Georgie Crozier. She joins me now from Melbourne. Georgie, take us through how you're seeing things play out here in Victoria.
Well, Peter, as you've said in your editorial, people are really frustrated and angry with what's happened today. Victoria's going backwards. We're being locked down for another 6 weeks. And you've just mentioned the poor people in the public housing towers who were given no notice and locked down. 3,000 people locked down, and they're literally their liberties taken away. And I've had conversations with people in those public housing towers last night to say there are people going from apartment to apartment. There's no patrolling and there's no communication. So the just basics haven't been done, and some real failures by government yet again. And of course, it's Victorians who are the big losers in this. And Daniel Andrews is blaming everyone but himself and his incompetent ministers on this terrible situation that we find ourselves here in Victoria.
They're doing the tests in relation to COVID transmission. The Premier says those towers will be locked down for about 5 days, or 3 days in. But we know that people can have the disease and not show effects for 14 days. Do we know if they show up, though, that they have COVID-19 in a test before they've formally got the disease?
No, and this is the confusion again, because as this tenant said to me last night, Georgie, they've only done 300 or 400 tests. We were here for 5 days. It'll take weeks to get through all of the testing, and we don't know what's going to happen. What's the plan with those people that are tested positive, Peter? There are so many unknowns here and questions. Do those people that are positive, do they stay in the towers? Are they moved out? What is the plan to protect the rest of the people from contracting COVID-19? And this is part of the problem in relation to the hodgepodge approach that the government has taken and their response. And instead of getting the help that they need from interstate and from the ADF to really get on top of this, we've just got this growing and increasing problem that is occurring each day, with the numbers going up and up and up.
Well, talk to me about the issue. The Parliament is shut down in Victoria. It doesn't resume till August. There is a judicial inquiry to deal with the issue of the quarantine allegations against these private security firms. I see this as a way to bury the issue for the government, because it'll be pushed off with no report for some time, when hopefully they would think we've all forgotten about the issue. The opposition banded together with some other minor parties to try and have a parliamentary inquiry. Last night we spoke to Richard Riordan about that, but it was shut down as well. Where's the scrutiny here, Georgie?
Well, we're being shut down the entire time, Peter. We've been asking questions. We've been wanting to get the information. I requested a briefing yesterday morning from the Department of Health. I haven't heard anything back from them to say about that. We need to go back into the Parliament to ask questions. Victorians want these questions answered, and we need to be back in the Parliament to do that. But the committees that we've requested are being shut down. The scrutiny is being shut down. This is an incredibly secretive government. They don't want any scrutiny at all, because they know they have stuffed this up monumentally. And it is catastrophic in relation to what is happening, not only from a health perspective, but from an economic perspective. We are setting our state backwards so far, and we're setting Australia back so far because of the failings of this government, and no one is taking responsibility and being held accountable for it. And we want that to occur. And you mentioned the inquiry. It's not a judicial inquiry. It's an inquiry that is giving them time to cover up their mess. And I think Victorians deserve a whole lot better than the fudging and the spinning that is going on continuously by Daniel Andrews. It is just disgraceful.
I know a lot of little businesses around where I live had just started to open up. They were open for takeaway. They'd gone and met all the rules and requirements of limited dining in restaurants and cafes. As of tomorrow night, they're all back where they started, as are most businesses right across Metropolitan Melbourne. We're talking about 5 million residents going back to where they were in March. We know in a couple of months, all the government welfare coming out of Canberra is set to end. How on earth does Victoria recover when you think that the rest of the country is now on the way out?
It's heartbreaking. It's heartbreaking for those businesses that were just trying to get themselves established again. And to be going backwards like this is truly heartbreaking. And I'm speaking to small businesses, as are my colleagues, and they are just really concerned about what is going to happen, not only just in the six weeks of lockdown, because that's going to have a massive impact, but as you say, when all those federal supports end and this state government doesn't have any answers, they're just absolutely hopeless on this. Instead of blaming everybody, whether it's the millennials, it's families, it's the security guards, and if you can believe it, the health minister herself blamed the Ruby Princess last week. It is just heartbreaking for those people that have done the right thing, who are trying to get back on their feet, and they've just had so much disappointment, and their anger and frustration is bubbling to the top, I can tell you, and so it should. It's just terrible.
Just one quick question before we go, Georgie Crozier. I listened to a lot of the questions in the press conference, not just what the Premier said. He was pushed pretty hard on the issue of contact tracing. It would seem there are a whole lot of cases announced in that 191 today that they have no idea where they have come from. And there was a sense there in that press conference that community transmission is at the point where it's almost out of control, that they will not be able to tell where the next round of cases or the contacts come from. How concerning is that?
Extremely concerning, Peter. Extremely concerning. They have lost control of this, and the contact tracing, as you rightly point out, is a major, major problem. Every case needs to be traced every single day. You can't let it lag. You can't let it go. And the government has failed to do that. And as a consequence, we've got this massive community transmission occurring, and that is a failure, a direct failure on the government's ability. And we know that leaked email that was reported in the Herald Sun, they said 2 weeks ago, our resources are exhausted. That came from the Emergency Management Commissioner himself. So massive issues with this, and this is why it's out of control, and the government needs to be held responsible for every single one of these failings.
Georgie Crozier, Opposition Health Spokeswoman, thank you very much for your time.